Thank you for joining our webinar today. We've got an exciting session for you focused on Pergility's experts sharing their top tips and tricks. This is episode 5. You can catch up on all previous episodes on our YouTube channel. The goal is to provide guidance to help you learn more about Microsoft Project. Let's get started. My name is Annie Levand, and I'm with a Microsoft Gold partner called Pergility. We've been implementing Microsoft Project and portfolio management solutions and developing enterprise-level applications for over 18 years for large enterprises, including everything from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working on what work, and they have a hard time getting consistent reports and metrics to make project-based decisions. We're known for having a 98% on-time, on-budget track record for successfully implementing these solutions for clients. We offer services and solutions in 3 core areas: deployment and consulting services, Pergility's core business. We provide professional services for successfully planning and implementing Microsoft Project portfolio management, including Microsoft Project Online, Project for the Web, and now the new Planner, integrating PPM with a line of business applications, and delivering strategic portfolio management solutions to support top-level management planning. Pergility also offers a set of Hammerhead pre-built software solutions and accelerators based upon 18 years of experience, including a set of Hammerhead products that provide improved access to your cloud PPM data, accelerate access to visual reports and dashboards using Power BI, connect data between your PPM system with Microsoft Teams, and extend connectivity into Active Directory to improve visibility, insight, and control over your work, people, and projects. New to our offerings is Hammerhead Power Pro, a pre-built solution crafted on the foundation of the Microsoft Power Platform and Project for the Web. This offering is designed to help bring some of our lessons learned on this platform to your organization. Finally, Pergility provides post-implementation support services, including expert care, designed to assist your PMO with gaining on-demand expertise on the solution supported. We have a full online automated e-learning offering that can improve consistency and adoption for your users of your project management tools. You can learn more about all of our services and solutions on our recently updated website, pergility.com. We have upcoming online webinars covering sessions on best practices for project and PPM processes and tools. We're holding an in-person project roadshow in Austin and Houston, Texas, starting the week of May 14th, followed by another one in Atlanta on May 22nd. You'll see the latest updates to Microsoft Project and Planner, learn about Microsoft's AI Engine Copilot, hear from clients in Pergility as to how you can improve your business using these technologies. Space is limited to the first 50 registrants, so sign up today. You can register for these events through the Eventbrite link provided or by searching Eventbrite Pergility in your browser. Hope you can join us for these upcoming sessions. All these videos and previous series are available on our YouTube best practice playlist listed on this page. Topics range from managing your digital transformation program using PPM technologies to integrating PPM with agile line of business applications. Feel free to subscribe and access the library at any time and share with your colleagues. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today's session, John Fitch. John is a PPM consultant with Pergility and has been assisting large enterprises with rolling out project management solutions for over 25 years. He's also been a Microsoft Project user since the late 90s. John lives outside of Chicago. And John, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Today, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Project in terms of cost management. So go ahead and share my screen here. All right, seems like we're up and going. Awesome. And the idea here that the purpose is, okay, you have a given project and you want to track all of your costs within Microsoft Project itself. And within that world, there's a couple different players that are involved. One of them is in terms of budgeting, the other one's in terms of planning. And we're going to talk about the differences between those and how you can use that then to help manage your project and provide information to your project sponsors along the way. Tactically today, we're going to tackle this by covering 3 different things. First, we're going to do terms and definitions. We're going to set up the actors in our play here and reveal the plot. Then we're going to talk about creating a project plan from a cost perspective. And then we'll also touch on a little bit at the end about what it takes to update that project plan. All right. So in terms of, well, let's go this way. All right. Let's see. Still want to go this way. All right. Terms and definitions. Okay, awesome. We're going the right direction. The two key players here that we have at the beginning are budgeting and planning. And so we're going to talk a little bit here about cost budgeting. So when we're talking about budgeting, we're talking about you have a sponsor or that has said, okay, I'm going to give you, for sake of example, $200,000 to build a house for me. Okay, those dollars are finite, right? That's the money that they have in the bank account or the financing that's been made available to them, right? It is the big box that surrounds everything else, right? And so the purpose of understanding what the budget is to understand what money's available. And then also when you start looking in terms of resources and so on and so forth, you can make tactical decisions about whether or not that resource you're going to be able to afford them or not, right? And then along the way, as your plan, which we'll get to in just a second, starts to grow and evolve, you can compare your plan against your budget and then provide information, data for decision making to your project sponsor. All right. So the next character that's in our story here is cost planning. So whereas budgeting is top down, planning is bottom up. And so from this perspective, what we're thinking about is I have tasks in a schedule. Those tasks have resources assigned to them. Those resources generate a cost, right? So whether it be an hourly paid person that we know as a work resource, or somebody who gives you an invoice, which we would call a cost resource, or materials that you buy by the unit. Those would be material resources. The idea is those get embedded in the tasks at the bottom side of the schedule. You aggregate those up and you generate how much money you are planning to spend within the project, right? The purpose with planning, right, is taking something and turning it into what is tangible. I know I'm going to need people. I know they're going to have to work. I know I need material. I know I'm going to have to use it. It's the fundamentals of your triple constraint, right? So from this point here, we're also going to cover up. We'll kind of go through this table really fairly quickly here, but just for the sake of understanding the rest of the demonstration, whenever we're talking about work, we're talking about hours. Whenever we're talking about cost, we're talking about dollars. We're talking about actual cost, we're talking about actual money spent. Baseline cost. So whenever you hear the word baseline, think agreed to, right? So I have a cost that my schedule says I'm going to generate. I share that with my sponsor. My sponsor says, okay, I agree to that. You baseline your project, right? So now I have a cost and I have a baseline cost that I can compare to each other throughout the course of the project. All right, new player here. Budget cost, right? When we were talking before about top-down item, budget cost is how we translate those dollars, that block of dollars that your sponsor gave you, right? And you're going to break those down into individual categories at the top level so that the sum of those adds up to your total budget cost, right? And then baseline budget cost, that's fundamental. Remember, baseline is agreed to, budget is top-down, so your agreed to top-down cost. These are the characters that are in our play today. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and work through creating a project plan, and we're going to detail the steps that are involved with that activity. All right. So high level here, we got, for project creation, we got 4 major steps here. We're going to establish the project plan framework. Second, we're going to populate the project plan details. Third step, we're going to establish the initial budget, right? And then fourth, we're going to reconcile the plan against the budget. Now, when you're looking at this, you might be looking at, hey, isn't steps 1 and 2 the same? They kind of are, but in reality, when you go to use this, it's very possible that step 2, project plan details, and step 3, establish the initial budget. It's very possible you might switch those. Establish the initial project plan so you have a timeline, set your budget, and then construct your plan against the budget you have. It's a very reasonable thing to do. But for the sake of demonstration here today, to make everything so it's a nice, smooth conversation, we're going to do them in this order. All right. So that first step, establishing the project plan framework. Within this world here, we're going to establish the tasks within our project, establish the start dates and the durations, right? And what this is going to do is this is going to build the timeline for our project, right? And we need that timeline. That's critical for us to be able to establish the budget later on. We'll get to that in a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is within the schedule, we want to establish generic resources in there. And then finally, once we have the generic resources in there, we're going to want to account for the cost that's in there, right? So for this latter half, right, we're looking at that resources side of the triple constraint. And within this world here, for example, with the generic resources, you're going to be looking at things like the rate per hour, the cost that's going to generate. Or if you have material resource, you're going to take a look at what the material cost is for that, right? And then within the project itself, we're going to embed those in there so that we have the ability from a planning perspective to have those stuff at the bottom so that we can aggregate them up. All right. So within our example here, I've taken a project template from Microsoft Project, and it was to home construction. So if you went into Microsoft Project, you went into the templates under new, one of them will be home construction. So that's what we started with here. And so you can see that we've done those individual things, right? We've established our project schedule. We've set up our durations. We have our start date, right? And because we have a duration and a start date, we now we have our finish here, which is also, in order to get this, we've also established our relationship among the different tasks, right? So you can see over here on the right-hand side, you know, how the relationship is. I think everything in this particular schedule is set up for a finish start relationship. And then the other thing that we've done is we've established these the resources here at the tail end here, and then that the resources are assigned against all the different tasks. So there's a couple things here that we'll work through here. Let's see, you know what, I think what I want to do here to kind of give you an idea of what's going on with these resource names, I'm going to go to the resource sheet. So let's go ahead and head over in that direction here. So I'm going to go over resource, I'm going to team planner, I'm going to resource sheet, right? And here at the top, you can see I have my work resources set up for my project here, right? And these aren't named resources. These are functioning as generic resources, right? I know I'm going to have a contractor, well, that's a concrete contractor, and he's going to be paid $50 an hour. I got a general contractor somewhere in here. He's going to be paid $200 an hour. We're going to see him in just a minute, right? So the idea here is that I have all my generic resources in here, and then I have the rates that I'm expecting to pay them in here, and I set this up in the resource sheet, right? So that's my work resources. The next thing I'm going to talk about here is material resources, which might be something that many project managers do not use on a frequent basis, but we're going to cover them here just so everybody has an idea of what they are. The idea of a material resources, think of something that you buy in a unit. So, and for the sake of our home construction, we're saying that we get permits in units, right? One permit is $50. If you had to get two, it'd be $100, that kind of thing. And we set that up here with basic math saying, no, they're all going to be $50. You're building a house in real life, it's probably not that. If you can get that price, build your house right away. But for here, it makes for the point, it makes for some easy math when we're looking later on in the project schedule. So, and then finally down here, we have cost resources. So cost resources, as many of you know, right? This is where you're not paying somebody by the hour. Rather, they're going to do work for you, and they're going to send you an invoice. And it's usually a pre-agreed upon price of, I'll do this for you, and it'll cost you $2,000. And and you're like, you know what, $2,000, that's great for me. Whether you can do it in 1 hour or 10, I don't care. I like that service at that price. Whenever you're talking about resources that are generating costs in that fashion, we're talking about cost resources, okay? So we've established here our three basic food groups of resources in terms of work, material, cost. All right, let's take a look here real quick and see how they play in our project schedule. So I'm going to swing back over here, go back to my Gantt chart. Excuse me. And up here on task number 2, I'm going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to switch this view over to work. Remember, when we're talking about work, when we're talking about our characters at the beginning, work is hours. And you can see here that my general contractor, he's 160 hours, right? And then architect and mortgage lender, they have no hours here. The reason why they have no hours, they are, yep, you guessed it, cost resources. So if we want to see what they're generating for this particular task, if we want to see the cost that they're generating here, what we'll do down here is we'll right click inside this box and we'll go from work, we'll go over to cost. And now you can see that our general contractor, he was at 160 hours. We pay him $200 an hour. So for this task, he gets paid $32,000 because his rate times the hours that we're expecting him to work is $32,000. For architect, we're saying that we're getting our plans for this house, and we're going to say we're going to get a great deal on this. We're going to get those plans for $8,000. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here is if I click up here, if I click too many times, I get a pop-up window. But if I click on here and I get 32,000, I can't do anything with this, right? I can type on my keyboard, nothing happens. But if I go down here to a cost resource, right, and I click on this, and I can type in $8,000 here, right? And that will generate $8,000 on that task, or if it's changing, right? I take the amount of dollars that I'm expecting for this task, for this resource to generate, and I just type it in. And then what Microsoft Project will do initially is it'll take those and it'll prorate those across the length of the task, right? And then a mortgage lender, by the way, is also a cost resource, and he's also editable here. And if I double click on it, I can also get a pop-up message that I don't want. But the moral of the story here is that for cost resources, I edit those dollars, I put them right here in the task. All right. Now, if you remember, we had a third kind of resource, and that was our material resource, and that was for things like permits. And you can see up here on line 5 here, we have a foundation permit, a secure foundation permit, right? And we're saying that, you know, our general contractor here, he's not putting any time into this. He's just getting it. It's just being handed to him. He's going out to the mailbox. He's not consuming any time. So he's a $0 cost for this task, but he's getting our permit that's going to cost us money. In our case here, it's going to be $50. And so one of the things I wanted to show here is that if I click on this $50, nothing happens. I can't do anything with it. But if I go over here to units, because remember we said material costs are sold in units, and I take this and I take it from 1 to say 2, and I hit enter, right? At first I look at this and I go, why isn't this adding up? And then I remember, oh yeah, I have to hit the OK button. I hit OK, 2 times 50, that's my $100. Okay, now I'm going to switch this back here because it's going to screw up my math later on. I want to make sure that everything is crystal clear throughout this demonstration. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to set this up here. And I now have my resources that are established in this schedule, right? What we've done is we've established our tasks, we've set up our durations, we've set up our relationships, we've set up our generic resources, and along with our rates on the resource sheet, and now we've taken care of this. And so at the end of this activity here, one of the things that we've done by doing this with all the different tasks in this project schedule is that we've now actually established our planned cost. Now, you don't see it anywhere here on this view, but if you went over, right? So we want to take a look at a different view. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to the view button up here at the top, right? And hit view, and then we want to see a different table right over here on the left-hand side. This upper left-hand guy here, this is a table. And so we're going to go over here to table. We're going to switch this to cost, and looky there, right? So if you remember on this guy here, for item number 2, we had a contractor that we were paying a lot of money to, $32,000 to. We had an architect that was $8,000. $2,000 for the mortgage lender, and then up here you can see that some of those is $42,000, and that's our total cost for this task. Now, one of the nice things that we can see here is that Microsoft Project will take all these different tasks here, and they'll add them up, and they'll give you a top line item here. So for example, our general conditions, that everything here is adding up to $46,150. So far so good, right? We've now established our planned cost for the project, right? And so what we're going to do next here, and we're going to try and swing back over here, hopefully to my PowerPoint slides here. All right, good, I made it. I'm very happy. It was a traumatic ride. All right, so project plan framework we've established. Okay, project plan details, right? This would be the place where you now establish your named resources. So now you're not just dealing with general contractor. You got Bob Smith, or you got Janet Jones. You have that person who's going to be involved in this, and they're going to be squaring everything away for you, right? And then once you start putting in named resources into your project schedule, make sure you take a moment to come over here and review and make sure there wasn't any switch in the cost, because that generic cost number might be different than the person you actually get. So make sure that you reconcile that and there aren't any surprises. Once you get done with that, you want to baseline your project. And then once you get done baselining your project, and this is probably the most important step of all, if you're working with Project Online, you want to make sure that you publish this project, because if you don't, nobody will be able to see all that hard work that you just put in. So for this baseline, the project aspect, we're going to take a look over here real quick, and we'll just show you where this is. By the way, we're on this cost view in the table. We're going to go back to entry view. That'll help us out a little bit later on. But to baseline a project, right, this is a project level activity. And so what we're going to want to do is come up here to project, right? Click on project, come over here, set baseline, and to get everything all squared away, we've kind of already done this, but then you'd hit set baseline here and you'd hit OK. And that takes all the different tasks that you've squared away, all the different costs that have been generated, and it creates a nice picture of all that for you so that you can compare that then to what life looks like a week from now, a month from now, a quarter from now, right? So we baselined our project. So I'm going to cancel out of this so that we're back in this world. All right. So publish our project, baseline our project, we've published our project. So now we've taken care of these different aspects, right? Next up, and this is the part that is new for a lot of people, right? We're talking about budgeting, right? Top line items, right? And so in order to do that, there's a few things that we're going to need to do. We're going to have to turn on the project summary task. We'll show where that's at. We'll glance at the project duration and make sure that that the duration of the task in this project is generated is what everybody's expecting. Then we're going to add a special kind of resource called a generic budget resource, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're also going to present to you another view called the task usage view. And then in that task usage view, we're going to go ahead and we're going to enter in these budget costs. All right, so let's take a look and see what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to go back over here to my project schedule, right? And at the top here, you'll notice that the first task that's in here is task number 1. Makes sense. But did you know, and my guess is most of you probably do, that there's also a line 0. And the way you find this line 0 is you come up here, because this is a Gantt chart activity, go to Gantt chart format, right? Swing all the way over here to the right. And here's this button here called project summary task. And you come over here, you hit that, and all of a sudden, I now have a line 0 at the top of my project schedule. And the name that's on it is the name of your project. And by the way, this leads us then into step 2. This is showing us that we're expecting to start our home in April. We're expecting to finish it in December. This is okay with me. So we're going to go ahead and get that squared away. All right. Now, the next thing I want to show you over here is I pre-populated this with some resource names. Now, if you remember, we were talking about generic budget resources, right? And so I wanted to show you here, right, that in this world here, if you remember that resource sheet, we had a lot of different resources. They're all showing up here, right? And so all these guys that I have on here are generic budget resources. And now, what would happen if I wanted to pick one of these other guys? Say my appliance contractor, I wanted to throw him up here in line 0, and I click on here, and I hit enter on my keyboard, and I get an error. And that, or at least a pop-up, right? And that pop-up says only budget resources can be assigned to the project summary task. To mark that the resource is a budget resource, you have to go to the resource sheet and set the budget field to yes. All right, so I'm gonna hit OK here. And by the way, to get out of this, you hit the escape button, because if you try and click anywhere else on here, it's going to give you that same error over and over again. So I'm going to hit escape, gets me out of this, right? And so we're going to do what that pop-up told us. And we're going to come back over here to resource sheet, and here we are. All right. Now, towards the bottom of my resource sheet here, I have a list of resources over here, right? And these are, if you notice over here on the right-hand side, I have a flag here called budget, and this budget is set to yes. All these guys up here are set to no. This guy down here at the bottom is set to yes, right? And so my admin costs, my construction costs, my design costs, so on and so forth, right? These are all my generic budget resources. Now, in terms of setting all these guys up, one of the things that I'm going to do here, and by showing you this, we're going to kind of look ahead a little bit here, but it's going to make the conversation be a little bit more natural. Over here in column A here on my Excel sheet, I have a list of all those planned resources here, right? So if you remember, our general contractor, he's right there. Our concrete contractor, he's there, right? And then our other resources like our permits, right? With those were our material resources, those are on here. And then also our mortgage lender. Remember, if that was a cost resource, that's also on here. And so what I've done is I want to make sure that I really don't want to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 budget resources to deal with, especially when I can group them together, right? So over here in column B, I've reduced my number of budget resources down to a handful. I think, what do I have over here? Oh, 7. 7's a lot better than 28. And so like my contractors, putting those under construction costs, my general contractor, I'm calling them an admin cost, so on and so forth. But the idea is that by setting up this relationship here, this allows me to aggregate my costs at the bottom of my schedule, my planned costs, and compare them against my budget costs that we're going to calculate at the top of the schedule. And if you're sneaking a look over here in columns S through U, you can see how this is all going to work out in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to take that over here. We're going to come back over to our project schedule. We have our budget resources here, right? And if we're going to go change our view again. So I'm going to go view, I'm going to go Gantt chart, right? And I can see that I got these guys up here and I can see them. All right. But now where do I put my budget costs? All right, if you remember when we were showing the slide just a few moments ago, we have a new view to show you. So we're up here on our view tab, and then Gantt chart's always the first one. It's far left. It's one everybody always uses. And then right next to it is this handy view called task usage. And we're going to go ahead and click on that guy. And when we do, we get a great view here that's actually rather compelling. And what we get to see here is all of our different tasks, and then underneath those tasks, we get to see the resources that are sitting underneath them, right? And so for the bottom half of this schedule here, right, if you remember when we were talking about all of our different costs and generating our costs, you can see, for example, we had our $42,000 item that's sitting right there, and the cost it's generating, those are all right here, and they aggregate up to this. And oh, by the way, we now get a new number in here, our total cost for the overall project. So we know that we add up everything from the project, all the work resources, all the cost resources, all the material resources. It's all coming up to $177,000 and change at the top of the schedule. That's valuable information for us. All right, and we have all this information for planned costs here at the bottom. You might be going, well, wait a minute, for my budget costs up here at the top, I don't see anything. And you know what? I ran into that too. I'm like, well, where is that? Well, it just so happens that Microsoft tends to hide this guy. So if I went in here and I'm gonna right click on my total cost, I'm gonna insert a column, and I'm gonna type in budget costs, and look at that. All right, now I pre-populated these, for the sake of our demonstration here to save you some time. But the idea is that you can just come right in here for your budget items and just type right in here on the number, right? So if I want, I got $45,000, I got that right in here. And I could just type that in, same with all these, right? And then all these, and you'll notice here at the top, I get $190,000. So I have a budget of $190,000. I have total cost for my plan of $177,000. I now have numbers that I can compare to each other, so I can see if my plan is actually going to stay within the dollars that I've been provided to get this thing done. That's fantastic. Excuse me. Now over here on the right-hand side, one of the things you'll notice is that we have time-phased activity. Now, over here on the side, we're showing work, and if you remember from the beginning, work is hours, right? And for the sake of dealing with cost, right, we want to deal with money more than hours. So if I come over here to detail, and I right-click on detail, I click on cost, right? And now I get dollars. And for the sake of just keeping this kind of smooth, I'm gonna turn that work part off. Okay, so now I get to see, if we're talking before, you remember we had that $42,000 here for task 2, right? One of the things that I can see here is, okay, so how does it prorate across the across time, right? And so if you remember for this task, I think it started at the beginning of April, runs to the very beginning of June, right? And so you can see the costs that are aggregating here. Now, for our general contractor, if you remember, he's a work resource, right? And we've highlighted this column right here just so you can see it, right? So on here, just like on the project schedule, I can't type in anything here, right? This is set by the number of hours that he has on the task. And so if something needs to change here, you need to go back over to your project schedule and make sure that you got the work hours associated properly there. But for my cost resource, however, right, for my architect, if you remember, my architect was going to build this, was going to give me this service for $8,000, right? If I was going to say, okay, $8,000, but say that's going to be, $3,000 here, right? And it's going to be $400 here, right? And that's how I'm going to get my $8,000. I can type those in right here in terms of my cost. All right. We're talking about cost, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, John, we were supposed to be talking about budget here. All right, so we're going to do that. All right, over here on details, I'm going to right-click on details. I don't see budget anywhere on here, but if I hit detail styles, it'll come up, and now I get a list here of a lot more fields. And one of them, you guessed it, budget cost. I'm going to hit show, and over here, by the way, you can move these up and down, get them in the order you want. I'm going to hit budget cost. I'm going to hit OK. And now look what I got here at the top, right? So I got my $45,000 for my admin costs here. Remember, that was my general contractor, right? And now I get to time phase that budget then across the life of the project. Okay, so what we've done here, right, in terms of establishing our budget, is that we can, if we want to, we can first come over here to our budget cost column over here on the left, enter in a whole number, and it'll prorate across. Or the other thing that we can do is over here on the right-hand side, if we turn this budget cost option on, we can come over here and then individually within each one of these, right, we can type in the amount of money that we want here, and we can spread that out across the length of the project. Now, how is that handy? When you're doing month-over-month planning, you can take a look at this top line here, and you can see, okay, the cost that I have that I'm expecting to have for my project schedule, it's about $15,000, and I've budgeted about $18,000. Okay, I'm in good shape, right? And I can see that along the way. If we notice over here on the left-hand side, my budget's a little bit bigger than my cost, so I got a little bit of room that I can put some pad in there, just to make sure that I'm staying within limits, and I'm not going to surprise anybody with a cost later on. Or if there's a small cost later on, I can absorb it without causing too much of a frenzy. The idea here is this top line for April. I can see what my cost is and what my budget is for April, for May, for June, for July. This is very valuable information. This is a plan that I can show somebody that they'll understand. They won't understand that entire Gantt chart here, but if you show them those dollars at the top, they're going to get that, right? And so this is how we're able to come in here and enter in our budget costs so that they're useful for us, for everybody. All right. So we've taken care of everything here. We've turned on our project summary task. We've verified our duration. We've talked about our generic budget resources and the importance of a budget resource, right? We've shown everybody what the task usage view looks like, and we've also shown where and how to enter budget costs. All right, so what's next? So now what we want to do is we want to reconcile the plan versus the budget, right? And so within this world here, we kind of talked about this already, so I'm not going to belabor the point too much, right? But the idea here is that you're going to want to make sure that your costs here never overwhelms your budget for the given time frame that you care about. In theory, you could come over here to this time scale and you could put this down to the day if you wanted to. But most places, when you're talking in terms of reconciliation, you're in months, quarters, semi-annual or annual budgeting, and so you set that time frame here, and that's how you do it. And then the idea here then is, so what you want to do is as we mentioned earlier, we have scheduled resources throughout the life of the project, and those scheduled resources we have affiliated into a group here in terms of planned resources, and then we have them affiliated with budget resources over here. And so what we're going to want to do is see where the planned resources are winding up, so that when we're looking here at the top at our group of our budgeted resources, that they more or less correlate between the two different groups. And so in terms of reconciling your plan versus your budget, this is where you do it, right? See where your plan costs are at, and then from there, reconcile, type in the different numbers for your budget resource, right? Because remember, we can come in here, we can actually click on this number here and change it, and make sure then that what we have here and here matches what we have here and here, or at least it's close enough that we like the way it looks. All right. Now, in terms of updating the project plan, a couple of tidbits here to keep in mind. One of the things that we're going to want to do is that you're going to be gathering actual information. So some of you probably use time cards and have people enter in time, and as they enter in their hours in Project Online, and that will then affect the actuals that'll be within your project. Many of you, I'm sure, you'll go into the different project schedule aspects or the different tasks on there, and you'll be marking them as complete. And as you mark those as complete, you'll be generating actual costs, right? So just to kind of go over this, just for the sake of thoroughness, right? If we went in here and I'm gonna insert a column here for % complete, right? And I come in here and I say that this is done, and I say that this is done, and perhaps we have the benefit of having all of our permits done in May, even though they're not going to be not scheduled for June. But let's just say that it's all squared away, and we got all this done here, right? What we're going to see is that we've generated then actual costs, and you can see. Let's see, come down here. We've generated actual costs. You can see it right here with our guy here, 32,000 here, right? We've captured that. And then for our architect, one of the things that we would do is we'd come in here and we'd say, okay, we've paid this guy off, right? So we've done our $8,000 here, and we've done our $2,000 here, right? We hit okay, right? And so now I have actual costs that are generated from this. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, but one of the things you'll notice when you're looking at your budget and your plan is that you've moved costs forward. So in a way, it looks like you're over budget, but you're not, because you've actually moved the work up front. And so what you'll want to do at this point then is take a look at that. So I'll go to view, task usage view, right? And now I'm going to add another view here, insert column. I'm going to take a look at my actual, would help properly. Let's try actual cost. We'll import that here, and so we can see what that looks like here. And then also I can put in actual cost here, right? And I can see how everything is generating in terms of actual cost. Well, I just did actual work. That wasn't exactly what I should have done, so we'll turn that one off and we'll try and put on actual costs. So actual costs, there we go. Now we got dollars against each other, right? And so now I'm looking at April, and I 14,700. My actual is 14,700, so on and so forth. And I didn't move the timeline in, so I'm not getting the money crunched, up front like I said we were going to. But if I said actual and I put my actual date and had my actual date as being May 2nd, today's date, that month, these dollars here, they would have squeezed up front. And then when I'm looking at my budget and I'm looking to reconcile my budget across the latter part of my project, this is where I would come in here to these individual line items and I'd make the appropriate adjustments so that my budget and my plan resemble each other the way that they need to. Then I show those adjustments to my sponsor, right? And we get into agreement on it. We're like, yes, we like the fact that this project is finishing sooner. I might have to free up a few funds, from the bank, but it's money that I budgeted for it, so it's available. But I'm good with this. And once they say I'm good with this, you take it back to Microsoft Project, and then you'd re-baseline your project. And so that would be how you would update this project schedule. So in this world here, right, we've gathered our actuals, we've reconciled our baseline against our actuals, we've updated our budget costs. We talked a little bit about what that change approval process looks like. We talked about recasting the baseline. And one more thing, when you get that project baseline, make sure you publish the project. That's a demonstration I had for you guys today.
Thanks, John, for that great presentation. We'll now open the floor to questions and answers. Remember to enter your questions and answers in the queue. Let's see if there's any questions for John. Give everyone just one more minute to enter a question, and we'll move on. Here's one question. What is the biggest challenge you see when setting all this up, John?
Getting the numbers, the actual information from the product sponsor in terms of making sure that budget is established correctly, and then having coaching conversations throughout the life of the project. The biggest thing, the biggest problem I've always run into is when you have surprising news for somebody. So to the extent that you can provide constant information to them in terms of here's how our project is progressing from a cost perspective, this is what we were expecting to happen, and here's the difference between the two, and here's my recommendation for handling it. Generally, you turn those surprises so that they're less surprising and you get a lot better conversations from it.
And John, here's another question. Explain why rebaseline.
The reason why you would re-baseline a project would be if the agreement with your sponsor changes. Then within Microsoft Project, there's a couple different ways you can do it. There are some people who just use that baseline, or some of us call it baseline 0, and we just use that one over and over again because it helps with Power BI reports and things like that later on. But there are also certain situations where you want to use, instead of baseline 0, baseline 1, all the way up to baseline 10. You get 11 of them to choose from. And the reason why you would have those different baselines is that the agreement across along the time frame of the project, it changes, right? New information comes in, things happen. And so you may have discussions with your sponsor, you have new agreements, and you make sure that your baseline always matches what everybody agreed upon.
And John, here's another question. How do you track costs against multiple baselines?
So within that view that I was showing earlier, and I was right-clicking on the details, within that world, you can add in a line item for baseline 0. You can add in a line for baseline 1, so on and so forth. Both on the right-hand side with the time phase, and also on the left-hand side, you can add the columns in there.
Well, if there are no more questions, I guess we can.
Oh, Annie, I can't hear you.
Oh, thanks for telling me, John. I said if there are no other questions, I guess we can move on. So how can Fragility help you? If you're looking for assistance with Project PPM, the new planner, or Power Platform, think of us. We can help you with consulting, training, and adoption services to address your most pressing challenges with Microsoft solutions. Additionally, if you're looking to up your game with either Project for the Web or the new planner or Project Online, we offer a series of pre-built solutions and accelerators that can make any implementation that much better. Reach out to us to explore any of these solutions or services to see how they could add value to your organization. Here are some good resources for you and your team if you'd like to learn more. You can visit our YouTube page, which has a series of playlists ranging from client testimonials and best practice videos to a full library of focused recordings on topics like resource management, portfolio management, and project execution. Next, you can head over to our shiny new website at fragility.com. It offers a lot of great content, including a Learn section with blogs and videos for the PMO and PPM community. We'd also recommend you visit the Project and Planner group on LinkedIn, which now has over 27,000 active members of a great interactive learning community. This is a public domain resource that everyone in the community has access to. Finally, if you have specific needs or questions, reach out to us. You can send an email to info@fragility.com and we'll set up time to talk through your challenges, goals, and work together to develop a solid solution to meet your requirements. Thank you again for everyone joining our webinar today. We appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you online for our next session. Have a great day.